February 23, 1945. Mount Suribachi, Iwo Jima. The pencil trembled in Superior Private Tadashi Yamamoto's hand as he scrawled what he believed would be his final entry in the diary hidden beneath volcanic ash in his bunker. The Americans have brought demons from hell, metal beasts that breathe fire like the dragons of ancient legend. We cannot comprehend such weapons. Through a narrow observation slit carved into volcanic rock, he had just witnessed something that shattered everything the Imperial Japanese Army had taught him about modern warfare. A Sherman tank, indistinguishable from dozens of others supporting the Marine advance, had suddenly erupted in a torrent of liquid fire. The stream of burning napalm consumed 3 concealed pillboxes in seconds, incinerating defenders who never knew the approaching tank carried anything more than its standard 75mm cannon. In the suffocating darkness of the tunnel system beneath Mount Suribachi, 2,000 Japanese defenders of the 109th Division listened to screams echoing through the passages. What they didn't know, what their military doctrine had never prepared them for, was that American ingenuity had transformed ordinary tanks into weapons that would fundamentally break the Japanese defensive strategy across the Pacific. The crisis began on Bougainville, January 30, 1944. The Hornet's Nest, a complex of interconnected Japanese bunkers, had resisted every conventional assault for weeks. Marine casualties mounted as portable flamethrower operators attempted to approach within their weapons' 40-yard range. The M1A1 portable flamethrower carried just 5 gallons of fuel and exposed its operator to concentrated enemy fire. The statistics were devastating. Flamethrower operators had an average battlefield life expectancy of 4 minutes. Their units suffered 92% casualty rates. They were priority targets for every Japanese rifleman who understood that killing the flamethrower operator meant survival for their bunker complex. Lieutenant Colonel Joseph Hart of the 754 Tank Battalion watched another Marine flamethrower team get cut down 30 yards from their objective. His subsequent report would provide historians with the genesis of American flame tank development. The portable flamethrower represents our most effective bunker reduction weapon, yet its employment guarantees near certain death for the operator. We must find a method to deliver flame while protecting the operator. Hart's field modification on New Caledonia was crude but revolutionary. His maintenance crews removed the bow machine gun from an M3A1 Stuart light tank and installed a Canadian Ronson flamethrower through the pistol port. The fuel tank, holding just 10 gallons, sat where ammunition had been stored. The system could fire for exactly 20 seconds. At the Hornet's Nest, the improvised flame tank destroyed 28 Japanese bunkers in a single afternoon. The crew suffered no casualties. The Japanese defenders, who had carefully calculated fields of fire to stop infantry approaches, had no contingency for a flamethrower that could engage from beyond their effective rifle range while being immune to their machine gun fire. May 15, 1944. Schofield Barracks, Hawaii. In a heavily guarded compound, Colonel George F. Unmacht assembled his development team. The Chemical Warfare Service officer had been given unlimited resources by Admiral Chester Nimitz after reviewing Hart's Bougainville report. Unmacht's team included Seabees from the 117th Naval Construction Battalion, who volunteered to work 75-hour weeks. The challenge was monumental. Japanese bunkers were now being constructed to prevent tanks from approaching within 100 yards. The fuel capacity of 10 gallons meant a tank could engage just 2 or 3 targets before withdrawing to refuel. The solution would be designated CB-H1, Chemical Battalion Hawaii 1. The specifications: 170 gallons of fuel capacity, 80 to 100 yard range, 2 minutes of continuous fire capability. The system required completely rewiring the tank's electrical system, installing 1,100 electrical connections, and fabricating a false gun barrel to maintain deception. The fuel mixture required extensive experimentation. Pure gasoline dissipated too quickly. The solution came from Harvard chemist Louis Feiser's invention, napalm, a thickening agent that transformed gasoline into a sticky, burning gel. The optimal mixture, 94% gasoline, 6% napalm powder, creating a substance that burned at 1,500 to 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. June 15, 1944. D-Day at Saipan. The 2nd and 4th Marine Divisions stormed ashore expecting fierce resistance from 32,000 Japanese defenders, double the number American intelligence had predicted. What neither side knew was that 24 M3A1 Saipan flame tanks were coming ashore, about to introduce the Japanese to mechanized flame warfare. Lieutenant General Yoshitsugu Saito, commanding the Japanese 31st Army, had spent 6 months fortifying Saipan according to Japanese doctrine dating from 1909, which emphasized aggressive counterattack. The concept of passive defense was considered distasteful to the Japanese spirit. Captain Sakai Oba of the 18th Infantry Regiment later wrote, "We had prepared for everything: naval bombardment, aerial attack, tank assault. We had contingency plans for American flamethrowers based on our experience in China. But we assumed these would be carried by infantry we could shoot before they got within range. Nobody imagined the Americans would mount flamethrowers on tanks." The first Saipan tank engagement occurred at 09:43 hours on June 16 at Charan Kanoa. Lance Corporal Toshio Takahashi, manning a concealed Type 92 heavy machine gun position, watched the approaching Sherman tank. His bunker had survived direct hits from naval gunfire. "I watched the tank approach to within 100 meters, Takahashi testified during post-war interrogations. "I was preparing to fire at the infantry when suddenly the tank erupted in flame. Not a shell, a continuous stream of liquid fire. It hit Sergeant Yamada's bunker. The fire entered through the gun slit. 10 seconds of screaming, then silence." The psychological impact rippled through Japanese defensive positions. At Hell's Pocket, Major Kiyoshi Yoshida, commanding the 136th Infantry Regiment's 2nd Battalion, received increasingly panicked reports from his forward positions. His adjutant, Lieutenant Hiroshi Ito, recorded in the battalion war diary, "The men report tanks that shoot streams of fire. The flame enters our bunkers through gun ports and observation slits. Men not touched by flame suffocate from lack of oxygen. There is no defense." Yoshida's response, dictated by military tradition, was to order his men to display the Yamato spirit and die honorably at their posts. But Bushido Code offered no tactical solution to liquid fire. The concept of tactical withdrawal, standard in German or Soviet doctrine, was unthinkable in Japanese military culture. Private Kenji Suzuki, one of 13 survivors from a company of 178 men, later described the breakdown. "When word spread that flame tanks were approaching, men who had sworn to die for the Emperor began to abandon positions. We had been taught that death in battle was glorious, but there was no glory in being burned alive." The Saipan tanks at Saipan consumed 45,000 gallons of napalm in 25 days of combat. The flame tank crews, initially held in reserve, soon found themselves in constant demand. Infantry units refused to advance without flame tank support. The 8 M4A3 Sherman tanks equipped with CBH-1 flamethrowers that landed on Iwo Jima represented the 2nd generation of American flame tank technology. These vehicles carried 290 gallons of napalm with an effective range of 150 yards at 300 pounds per square inch pressure. General Tadamichi Kuribayashi, commanding 21,000 defenders, had studied American tactics at Saipan. His defensive plan specifically addressed flame weapons. Positions must be constructed beyond their range or with multiple exits to prevent entrapment. The Japanese had excavated 18 kilometers of tunnels through Iwo Jima's volcanic rock. Ventilation shafts, multiple exits, and zigzag passages showed careful consideration of flame warfare. But Kuribayashi had calculated based on Saipan tanks' 80-yard range. The new CBH-1 systems could reach 150 yards. February 21, 1945. D+2 at Iwo Jima. Tank Commander Staff Sergeant Robert Watson described the first engagement. We approached caves at the base of Suribachi. Infantry had been trying to clear them for 6 hours. We pulled up to 120 yards, beyond Japanese anti-tank weapon range, and triggered a 15-second burst. The flame entered the cave and followed the tunnel system. Smoke vented from spider holes 50 yards away. Superior Private Shigeo Hayashi survived by being in a sealed chamber. His 1975 account provides the only Japanese perspective. Orange light filled the tunnel ahead. The flame moved like a living thing, following every passage. Men tried to run, but fire moved faster. The screaming lasted perhaps 10 seconds. The northern plateau of Iwo Jima contained Hill 382, Turkey Knob, and the amphitheatre, positions connected by tunnels with interlocking fields of fire. Colonel Thomas Warnham, commanding the 27th Marines, made a decision that became standard doctrine. No infantry assault will commence until flame tanks have suppressed the objective. The flame tank Dragon, commanded by Sergeant William Adamson, led the assault on Turkey Knob on March 3rd. Adamson's crew had developed reconnaissance by fire, using short bursts to reveal hidden positions by smoke venting from concealed openings. In 4 hours, Dragon revealed and eliminated 27 Japanese positions. Captain Hiroaki Nishimura of the 2nd Mixed Brigade observed the flame tank's operational patterns and noted a critical weakness. After approximately 60 seconds of firing, tanks needed to withdraw and repressurize. We instructed our men to count the seconds. When the count reached 50, soldiers in secondary positions would prepare to engage during repressurization. This adaptation led to the first flame tank destroyed by Japanese action. On March 5th, after a 55-second burst, a Japanese soldier emerged 30 feet away and threw a satchel charge onto the engine deck. 2 crew members died. The American response was immediate. Flame tanks would operate in pairs, one providing conventional support, while the other discharged flame. This tactical evolution became standard doctrine. March 9th, 1945. The Gorge, Iwo Jima. This narrow ravine contained General Kuribayashi's headquarters, 75 feet underground with 5-foot-thick reinforced concrete walls, housing 1,000 naval troops under Captain Samaji Inouye. Lieutenant Colonel Joseph Chambers requested every available flame tank. 6 tanks, the entire operational inventory, assembled at dawn. They arranged themselves around the gorge's entrance and commenced firing in sequence, maintaining continuous projection for 12 minutes. They consumed 1,800 gallons of napalm. Corporal Masao Watanabe, one of 7 survivors, testified, "Fire came from all directions. It entered every cave, tunnel, position. Men tried fleeing deeper, but flame followed, consuming oxygen." Captain Inouye ordered counterattack, but men refused, the first time Japanese soldiers disobeyed direct orders. The deployment of the 713th Tank Battalion, provisional flamethrower, to Okinawa represented the final evolution of American flame tank doctrine. This entire battalion, 54 Sherman tanks converted to flamethrowers, had trained for 4 months at Schofield Barracks. The battalion's equipment represented pinnacle flame tank technology. The POA CWS-H5 system mounted coaxially with the main gun, allowing tanks to retain conventional armament. The flame projector, concealed within a false barrel, could discharge napalm at 4.4 gallons per second. April 7, 1945. The 713th landed at Hagushi Beaches with 53 operational tanks. They faced General Mitsuru Ushijima's 32nd Army, 110,000 troops defending 60 miles of interconnected tunnels throughout the Shuri Line. April 19, 1945, became the Black Day of American armour on Okinawa. The 27th Infantry Division, supported by 30 tanks including 8 flame tanks, assaulted Kakazu Ridge. The Japanese allowed tanks into a kill zone before opening fire with 47mm anti-tank guns, magnetic mines and suicide teams. 22 American tanks were destroyed in 4 hours, the greatest single tank loss in Pacific War history. 3 were flame tanks, their burning napalm creating pillars of black smoke. Captain Robert Williams of Company A, 713th Battalion, provided crucial analysis. The Japanese didn't develop a counter to flame tanks. They concentrated everything against all tanks indiscriminately. Our losses were proportional. The flame tanks that engaged targets before being hit eliminated objectives as effectively as ever. Within 72 hours, replacement flame tanks arrived. Tactics evolved immediately. Flame tanks would advance behind conventional tanks. Infantry would provide close security. Artillery would suppress anti-tank positions. May 12th to 19th, 1945. Sugarloaf Hill anchored the western Shuri line with Half Moon and Horseshoe Hills forming an interlocking complex. The 6th Marine Division had suffered 2,662 casualties attempting to take the position. On May 17th, Lieutenant Colonel Stephen Sable coordinated 12 flame tanks for Operation Blowtorch. The plan, simultaneous engagement of all 3 hills, preventing mutual support, with 20 minutes of suppressive flame while infantry advanced. Sergeant Michael O'Brien, commanding Devil's Breath, described the assault. We pulled into position 150 yards from Sugarloaf. Japanese soldiers could see us. At 06:15 we commenced firing. The flame arced through the air, impacted the hillside, flowed into every hole. I fired 45 seconds, then rotated back while another tank took over. Private First Class Yukio Miyamoto, one of 11 survivors from 400 defenders. We knew flame tanks were coming. We could hear their different engines. Colonel Mita ordered us to deepest bunkers, but flame found us through ventilation shafts. Those nearest vents died instantly. Others suffocated. I survived in the furthest corner, holding my breath, then crawled through bodies. May 29th, 1945. Shuri Castle, ancient seat of the Ryukyu Kingdom, had become General Ushijima's headquarters. The limestone foundations contained a 3-level command complex housing 1,000 staff officers. 6 flame tanks from Company A, 713th Battalion, approached from 3 directions. At 1400 hours, they commenced firing in coordinated sequence for 18 minutes, consuming 2,100 gallons of napalm. Colonel Hiromichi Yahara, Ushijima's operations officer, described the underground perspective. The command post was 20 meters underground, protected by 3 meters of concrete. We thought ourselves immune. Then ventilation shafts glowed orange. Temperature rose so rapidly papers burst into flame. General Ushijima ordered evacuation, but exits were blocked by fire. The 713th Tank Battalion's final statistics from Okinawa revealed mechanized flame warfare's efficiency. Japanese eliminated. 4,788 confirmed killed. Prisoners captured, 49. American casualties, 8 killed, 1 missing in action, 111 wounded. Tank losses, 41 knocked out, 26 returned to service. Napalm consumed, 200,000 gallons. The casualty exchange ratio, approximately 598 to 1 in terms of killed, exceeded any ground combat unit in the Pacific. Military reports often cited 40 to 1 effectiveness when considering overall operational impact, including positions destroyed and strategic value. The inability to develop countermeasures demonstrated complete institutional breakdown. Japanese military doctrine, unchanged since 1905, emphasized spiritual superiority over material factors. Training manuals stated, material superiority must be overcome by spiritual superiority. Colonel Masanobu Tsuji admitted in 1962, We knew Americans developed tank flamethrowers after Saipan. Reports reached Imperial headquarters. But acknowledging need for countermeasures meant admitting Yamato spirit couldn't overcome American technology. Such admission was impossible. Technical solutions proposed in June 1945 never materialized. Project Mizuchi. Water curtains to block flame. Water evaporated instantly. Project Ishikabe. Double walls with crushed rock. Napalm flowed around obstacles. Project Kazaguruma. Ventilation fans. Metal blades melted. Increased airflow drew flame deeper. In 1985, historian Dan King interviewed 100 Japanese veterans who faced flame tanks. Their testimony provides unique insight. Corporal Toshio Kondo, burned at Sugarloaf. Death held no fear. We were already dead by choice, seeking honourable death. But flame tanks offered no honour. You cannot fight fire. You can only burn or run. Sergeant Major Yoshio Yamada, 32nd Army. I served since 1937. Faced Chinese, British, Australian, American forces. Nothing compared to flame tanks. They removed combat from war, replaced it with extermination. Operating flame tanks extracted psychological toll on American crews. Unlike conventional combat with instant death, flame tank operators witnessed victims' agony in detail. Sergeant William Morrison, commanding Hell's Bells. You'd fire into a cave and hear screaming for 15 seconds. You knew exactly what was happening. Some crews wore earplugs to block out the screaming. Veterans Administration records show flame tank crews experienced PTSD at rates 40% higher than conventional tank crews. The flame tank program remained classified until 1958. General Douglas MacArthur stated, "The flame tank saved 100,000 American casualties in the Pacific." Admiral Chester Nimitz assessed, "The flame tank broke Japanese will to resist more effectively than any weapon except the atomic bomb." The planned invasion of Japan allocated 720 flame tanks. Production reached 60 tanks monthly by August 1945. The Chemical Warfare Service stockpiled 2 million gallons of napalm. The 713th Battalion's operations established principles influencing American doctrine through Korea and Vietnam. Marine Corps publication FMFM 11-4, Flame Warfare, 1955, drew from 713 battalion reports. Korean War saw POA-CWSH, 5 Sherman tanks repeat success against Chinese positions. Vietnam deployed M67 tanks, but political sensitivities led to withdrawal by 1970. The POA-CWSH-5 system represented remarkable engineering, 290 gallons napalm capacity, 300 to 375 pounds per square inch operating pressure, 125 to 150 yard effective range, 4.4 gallons per second maximum discharge, 270-degree traverse capability, napalm composition, 6% aluminum naphthenate/palmitate, 94% gasoline, burned at 1,500 to 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit for 15 to 20 seconds after adhesion. Dummy gun barrels concealing flame projectors were visually identical to standard 75mm guns. This created paralyzing uncertainty. Any Sherman might be a flame tank. Japanese soldiers faced an impossible choice: engage what might be conventional tank and reveal position, or wait and potentially be incinerated. Captain Hideki Yamashita, 24th Division. Americans made every tank a potential flame tank in soldiers' minds. Men hesitated engaging even conventional tanks, fearing flame retaliation. Though only 54 flame tanks operated among 800 on Okinawa, Japanese interrogations suggested they believed Americans fielded hundreds. June 1945 brought the Flame Extension System, 400-foot armoured hoses allowing infantry to project flame beyond tank-accessible terrain. Technical Sergeant Paul Rodriguez explained, "We turned every flame tank into a flame supply point. 4 squads could operate from one tank. We called it distributed destruction. Private Tetsuo Nakamura, captured June 18th. We dug deeper, made smaller entrances. Nothing mattered. Flame found us through cracks in rocks, spaces we didn't know existed. On June 23, 1945, organized resistance ended. General Ushijima committed seppuku after issuing, "The enemy's material superiority has overcome our spiritual strength." Development timeline. January 1944, first improvisation, 10 gallons, 60-yard range. June 1944, Saipan tanks, 170 gallons, 80-yard range. February 1945, CBH, 1 systems, 290 gallons, 150-yard range. April 1945, POAC-WS H5, 300 gallons, 125 to 150-yard range. Production 354 flame tanks total. 605,000 gallons napalm consumed. 22,000 plus Japanese killed by flame tanks. Major Yoshitaka Hori, Iwo Jima survivor. Flame tanks didn't just defeat us militarily. They invalidated our entire warfare concept. We prepared to die beautifully for the Emperor. Instead, we died anonymously, burned from caves. Captain Tsuneo Shimura testified in 1951. "We weren't defeated by brave soldiers alone. We were defeated by American industry that conceived, developed, deployed weapons we couldn't counter. Flame tanks were industrial machines processing death." By June 1945, over 10,000 Americans had trained on flame tanks. Yet Japanese intelligence never grasped deployment scale until facing them. Lieutenant Colonel Takashi Watanabe, Imperial General Headquarters. "We received reports after every operation from June 1944. We dismissed them as propaganda. That Americans deployed hundreds of flame tanks never occurred to us. Military historians calculate flame tanks saved 50,000 to 100,000 American casualties. Each position eliminated by flame would have required frontal assault, accepting 30 to 50% casualties." Master Sergeant Anthony Romano, who commanded 3 flame tanks. "People ask if I'm proud. I'm proud I saved Marine lives, but I'm not proud of burning men alive. We did what was necessary, not noble." Colonel Unmacht reflected in 1970. "We stumbled into the perfect weapon-target combination. Japanese built defences proof against every weapon except the one we hadn't planned to use. They prepared for conventional assault. We brought liquid fire." General James Mattis, 2010. "The 713th Battalion proved you don't fight fair, you fight to win. They faced an enemy who welcomed death and defeated them with a weapon that made death terrible. That's saving American lives through superior firepower." Corporal Eugene Patterson, last surviving 713th operator, died 2018. "Japanese wouldn't surrender. They'd fight from caves with no hope, just to kill one more American. We could have spent months digging them out, losing thousands. Instead, we burned them out in hours. Given the same choice, I'd do it again, because every Japanese soldier we burned meant an American boy who went home." The transformation of Sherman tanks into flamethrowers symbolizes warfare's evolution from combat to industrial processing. Japanese forces, prepared for honorable death, faced mechanized immolation offering neither honor nor escape. The statistics tell part of the story. Behind numbers lie individual horrors: soldiers burning in caves, operators haunted by screams, paradise islands becoming crematoriums. Flame tank warfare was never glorious, only efficient. Yet that efficiency ended the Pacific War with fewer casualties than alternatives. Flame tanks that terrorized Japanese forces into abandoning sworn positions ultimately saved lives by hastening defeat. Japanese soldiers discovered their enemies had industrialized warfare's most primal terror, fire, delivered through armored vehicles immune to their weapons. They learned American innovation transformed any defense into a trap. They prepared for warriors and faced engineers. They prepared for battle and faced extermination. They prepared for honourable death and faced industrial immolation. Flame tanks didn't just burn bodies from caves. They incinerated military philosophy based on spiritual superiority overcoming material disadvantage. Napalm burned at 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, and no amount of Bushido could change that. The Japanese infantry never knew American Sherman tanks were equipped with flamethrowers until liquid fire began flowing into their positions. By then, it was too late for anything but screaming.